Moving on to Thorpe St Andrew application. We have 4 to consider here. Now, I do understand there was some talk about having a site visit. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Having read the report, it is very complex, the whole matter. These are the 4 applications, and looking at the topography of the site from just reading the report, because I don't know this site at all. The Langley South site seems to be on quite a high elevation, which looks over the River Yare Valley, and the Griffin Lane site, part of that is marsh, and that is down by the River Yare. So I really would like to propose that the committee have a site visit to look at this complex site and the topography. And also, there are some sort of ancient monuments on this site. There is a World War II. Sorry about this. There's a World War II building, and that there is also some tower. And I think those ought to be noted by the committee, and we need to go and have that site visit. Thank you.
Okay, do you have support for that site visit?
Sorry about that,
Paul?
I've just proposed.
Yes, I'd like to second that we have a site visit, please.
I think a vote would be helpful. I think I understand in terms of, yes, there is an ability for members to request a site visit. Your guidance allows you to do that at the earliest opportunity. I've heard appropriate reasons to do so, so I would suggest we just have a vote on that.
All those in favour of a site visit, please. That's unanimous, Lucy. Thank you. I do apologise to all the agents who have come for the Thorpe St Andrew application. We will be having a site visit and that will be deferred. So you're very welcome to leave if you wish to. Right, if everyone's ready, we'll go on to the next application, 4D South Walsham, the Ship Inn on the street. And we have Ellie Yarnham presenting. When you're ready, Ellie.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. Are we all back?
I think so. Nigel's not back.
Sorry about that. So this application is for proposal 2022-05 No, wrong one, my bad. 2025-2070, which is for the change of use of the public house at the street in South Walsham. Part of that is also just to facilitate some additional alterations in the form of a dormer window, windows, demolition of a garage, etc., which is listed out on the application. So I'll run you through some slides and kind of shows you the context of South Walsham in general, where the site sits in amongst the kind of village setting and then its rural wider setting as well. So in terms of the application site, it's positioned relatively well in the centre of that village and that surrounding landscape, and north is indicated on the plans to get your bearings. I'll just zoom in on that as well, just a clearer image. I don't know if you can see the cursor just sitting just there in the middle. So that is the site in question. This gives you immediate surrounding context, and you can note the kind of highway, which is obviously going to form the access, as well as the amenity considerations for the neighbouring properties. So I'll move over to some plans for the proposal. So we've got the existing and proposed site plans. You may be able to note that there isn't much difference between the two, as there's no external alterations in terms of additional floor space being added as part of the proposal. You can see that there is variations for the parking, and they're indicated for the garden area to the rear as well. So you can see just some existing elevations, traditional pub form with the ship sign on the front and the side of the building, and say it shows the adjustments to the. So the next slide will show the adjustments to the building as well. So there is the proposed set of elevations. You can see that there has been the removal of the sign. That sign is painted on. It's on the actual building itself. Some opening of new windows where they were originally bricked up. One dormer window in the attic floor, roof light, for example, in the rear roof slope, and some fenestration details on the rear elevation in form of doors. So in terms of the floor plans, it's generally the attic floor and the ground floor are already in a residential lawful use, as that formed part of the manager's dwelling, and then the ground floor was the area of the public house. There is also that basement area as well. Moving on to the proposed floor plans, you can see where has been indicated on them. There's going to be the ground floor is going to be the main kind of living area, including the sitting dining areas with kitchen, breakfast, bar area, and then the first floor and attic floors are mainly to be bedrooms and bathrooms. So I'm just going to go then flick through the actual site and walk you around the site. So you can see there's a couple of images from the front. You can see that there is the for sale freehold sign at the front. In terms of the back, you can see that there is there's two dormers already there, and I'll flick through as I go round. So the image on the left side of the screen is taken from the kind of rear of the pub, showing the neighbours' dwellings and the relationship with them, and also the rear garden. Again, the image on the right is just a more clear version of those dwellings to the side of the site. So moving on, we're just going around the public house. You can see it's quite overgrown in terms of the shrubbery on it as such. It's going to need some repair works in certain places, but nothing substantial. And so then moving over, so that garage there, as shown, is to be demolished as part of the proposal. There is some trees adjacent or in the site, and you see there is that grassed area. So there is quite amount of hard standing already at the site, which was formerly part of the car park. So just getting just closer up to the building, you can see some back entrances, the doors, just some of the general kind of wear and tear of the building currently, and kind of what it is sitting like. And then just at the front of the building, you can see that the front door is blocked up, has been for a number of years, and I think they're, to stop intruders, etc., for more security purposes. So just moving out onto the highway, showing the kind of access points, and so there is the neighbouring property with their access, and this is already an existing access which will be utilised. as part of the proposal. So I'll leave you on the final slide, which is just the aerial and site plan as proposed. So the proposal includes the addition of that small dormer window. It's a new opening to facilitate the conversion and demolition of the garage, as well as the change of use of the public house. Now, the public house only sits on the bottom floor of that site, and there is also existing residential use lawfully on the first and attic floors. This proposal isn't a separate residential use, it is to be used in conjunction with that existing use, so therefore no additional net units are being created as part of the proposal, so it's still there. Excuse me. So therefore, the set committee, due to the council constitution, in terms of the proposal would result in the loss of a employment use, and obviously the recommendation is against that. So they have produced as part of their proposal viability assessments, and they have demonstrated that the public house has been up for rent and for sale for a substantial amount of time, and there has been no credible offers that have been accepted for its continued use as a pub. So there has been every effort by that local community group, as you may have seen within the report, to purchase and retain the asset. However, this has not been successful due to a lack of funding. The site is within a development boundary, making the principle of the proposal acceptable in this case, and also the proposed conversion of the building into a residential unit does make use of that building, which is considered as a non-designated heritage asset. So no objections have been received from highways, ecology or environmental quality, and therefore their recommendation will be subject to conditions. So the proposal is considered to have no significant adverse impact on neighbour and amenity, highway safety or the character of the area due to the minimal changes involved for the building. So whilst that loss of that community use is not something that we can kind of go against at the moment, it is regrettable, but the robust evidence that has been submitted with the proposal has been provided that is showing that it's no longer viable and therefore complies with policy CSU2 of the development plan. This indicates 12 months marketing has to be demonstrated for a non-viable use, and therefore change of use will be supported in a roundabout way. So therefore, on balance, the proposal is considered acceptable and is recommended for approval, subject to conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Does the committee want anything clarified? Yes, Peter, first, please.
Thank you, Ellie. Just looking at the diagram there, can you just clarify? I take it that's the 3 parking spaces to the side of the pub. Is that going to be separated from the rear? Because it's quite a reasonably large car park at the back there, isn't it?
It is, yes, and it's already hard standing currently. So the anticipation on this site plan is that part of that hard standing directly behind the public house will be used as a patio area for the residential use.
Ken, please.
Reading this through, as I go through South Walsham quite frequently, I was looking on page 183533. The proposal is to retain the building in its existing form with minor alterations externally relating to the rear of the building, resulting in no changes to the front or sides of the existing building. And I've spoken to 1 or 2 local people there, and although there was this big effort to, as you know, to get it run locally, and I think it's going to be excellent, and it will be a very good proposal, and certainly I shall be happy to propose and certainly will support this application.
Okay, thank you. Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Can you just run it? I know you did, but can you just run through how was it marketed and for how long?
5 years.
5 years. And what? How do we deem an acceptable offer? I mean, it was an offer made, but in essence, that was turned down because it wasn't near enough the asking price. Or how does that work, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the viability assessment that was submitted was carried out in June this year. And so it was done by a reputable firm, Thomas E. Teague, who are licensed property valuers and rating surveyors, for example. So just to run you through, so it was up for rent with a rental company from November 2020. So it closed following the COVID pandemic, as most public houses and community settings had to. So the first went up for rent November of the same year. During that time, the lease was not carried forward with the current tenant. At that point, it then expired. At that same time, in April 2021, they reduced the asking price for the rental side of it per annum. And say, I am aware that there is comments made about a potential user or a tenant of that, but the applicant site, the owner, didn't choose to go ahead with that, and they chose to put the sale for the property up for sale instead. Now, December 2022 at this point, it was put up for sale. Marketing boards put up with a company who kind of specialises in public houses sales as such. Again, that was then reduced in price by about £50,000 approximately in 2024. And they have demonstrated it has been more than 12 months of that marketing that has been completed. As per the policy recommends 12 months, it's been in excess of that.
Thank you, Chair. Is this going to be sold as one single house?
Yes, so the ground floor will be built or changed use, and then it will be incorporated into the existing residential use which is above. So it'll be one planning unit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we okay if we go to speakers? Yeah. We have two objectors, Roger Bushell and Michael Linsdale. If would you like to come to the front, please? You both have 5 minutes each, and when you start, press the right-hand button and your time will start.
I'm a director of the Save the Ship Community Benefit Society, and I'm going to talk on 2 points, the importance of the ship into the community and the ongoing campaign to save it. The ship is much more than a simple line asset on a billionaire's spreadsheet. It is quite literally and metaphorically an asset of community value. The ship has existed for over 200 years. South Walsham has 800 residents or so, with no facilities in the village, no shop, no post office, and very little public transport. Reopening the ship as a community hub and adding a small shop would be a real boost to the community and the local economy. When it was open, the ship was a vital local employer. Up to 20 people were employed part-time and full-time, particularly during the summer. It's within the Broads National Park, and tourism is a vital constituent of the local area. There are letting businesses, B&Bs, and obviously extensive waterside moorings in Fleet Dyke and South Walsham Broad. And since the ship was closed, there's been a noticeable decline in both those moorings and business to the local economy. On the upside, the potential for the pub is still very good. Fairhaven Woodland and Water Gardens has over 50,000 visitors each year. It is within a few hundred yards of the pub, and historically the pub was frequented by walkers, cyclers, sailors, and general passers-by on the road from Acle to Norwich. Local societies used it extensively when it was open, and it supported the events at the St Lawrence Community Centre opposite by the church. It would trade viably as a community-owned entity, and at a realistic price, I can't emphasise that more, other pub operators would be interested in it. Just briefly on the Save the Ship campaign. The ship campaign started when the ship was put up for sale. The lease had expired pre-COVID, and the pub was empty and unused during COVID. And in 2023, the community started to move into action as the pub was put up for sale. A survey had a response of over 90% of the residents of the village supporting the retention of the pub. Yourselves awarded it as an asset of community value in August of 2023. That's less than 2.5 years ago. And the building is also designated as a non-designated heritage asset. The Save the Ship Community Benefit Society started in mid-2023. The campaign is supported by the Parish Council, many local businesses, our MP, CAMRA. The pub is the hub, and we have had guidance and mentoring from the Plunkett Foundation. We were awarded a £10,000 government funding via Locality UK to support our application to the then Community Ownership Fund. The ambition is not just to repair and reopen the pub, but to create a real community hub, which includes a volunteer-run shop, which would be a vital facility for the village. By July 2024, so that should be June, a business plan and application document were about to be submitted when the process was suspended due to the general election. Had we received a COF grant, a community share application exercise would have taken place, and we are quite confident that that would have provided us with the funds on top of the grant to purchase the pub. We await the new government's full replacement for COF, and it is our view that that may provide us with the route forward in funding. The committee that runs the Save the Ship campaign is still very committed and believe that it will move forward once the clarity of the political, can't even speak, the political landscape is clearer. We just need the time in order to recoup and refocus our efforts in fundraising. So our ask really is, and a plea, just don't sink the ship. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on time. Would you like to
Yes,
have your
thank
5 minutes?
I too am a director of the Save the Ship campaign, and I'm objecting to the planning application primarily on the grounds that the pub has not been adequately marketed and is not at a realistic price. The applicant has asserted that the ship closed because it was unviable. That is not correct. It had been profitable, but it closed because the lease expired and the tenant decided to focus on other hospitality assets rather than renew it. Also, the pub needs a lot of updating, and the tenant wasn't prepared to do that under a short lease. The applicant says there was no interest from anyone taking a lease. That too is incorrect. A Norfolk Hospitality Group was interested, and they agreed outline terms with the letting agent, but the owners pulled out and placed the pub for sale instead. That pub company has stated as much in their objection to the application. That company still believes the ship can be viable, but they don't want to own it. They are, however, prepared to operate it for the South Walsham community if we're able to buy it, and they successfully run another community-owned pub. The applicant says there's been no interest in buying the ship. That's only partly correct. There has been interest from people who regarded it as potentially viable, but they quickly concluded that the asking price is far too high and have not taken it any further. The price was initially £400,000, now £350,000. The selling agents have said many times that their client was most unlikely to accept any substantially lower offer. In developing our business plan, the community group has commissioned 3 reports and valuations from chartered surveyors that specialise in licensed premises. Each has concluded the pub could be viable, but had valued it at much less than the asking price. After taking into account the condition of the building, it's currently felt to be worth only around £200,000. There's always a buyer at the right price. The ship has a low value because it's the authorised uses as a pub. It's in poor condition. If consent is given for a residential use, the value will be much higher, and that's clearly what the owners want to achieve. As well as asking a realistic price, the applicant has to demonstrate that it's been marketed extensively. The only marketing we're aware of has been putting up a for sale board on the front. The price reduction has never been featured. The agents are based near Milton Keynes and been really difficult to contact by phone or mail. A local businessman you'll be aware of, who is well known locally as buying and running many local pubs, has said he hasn't even been approached by the agents. This surely doesn't constitute extensive and appropriate marketing. The COVID pandemic coincided with the marketing period, and the hospitality businesses are only just recovering. You'll be aware again of several recent pub acquisitions and reopenings around the Norwich area, which are now trading successfully. A fresh, local marketing campaign at the right price could well attract offers. The Ship's a small pub. It's had its ups and downs, and conditions for pubs are tricky at the moment. But it's vital for South Walsham, and it's historically attracted customers from a very large area. It's important for tourists and visitors, and as my colleague has said, a whole series of local attractions. We plan to add a small shop, make internal alterations, and add a rear extension, which would increase the existing covers from about 40 to 65, plus the garden and the terrace. It's potentially a very viable pub. The upper floors could become apartments, bed and breakfast, or the owner's home. And don't forget, this council itself scheduled the Ship as an asset of community value and as a heritage asset, and that national and Broadland planning policies require or encourage the retention of community facilities, including public houses. It's not been properly marketed, and the asking price is way too high. It's not brownfield land. Don't deny South Walsham the opportunity to retain its only remaining pub and potential hub. A refusal will force the owners to market it again at a lower, hopefully appropriate price, and which we do believe would attract a buyer. You might want to do your own valuation, commission your own valuations, or you'd be welcome to have a look at the ones we secured from independent professional surveyors who specialise in this area. Finally, is it feasible that the community could buy the Ship? Yes, at the right price, especially if the government deliver on its promise to replace the discontinued community ownership fund. At a public meeting we held, pledges running into 6 figures were made to buy shares in the pub, but only on the assumption that we had a foundation of grant money. We couldn't raise the full amount purely from the community. And other options are being explored as well, which combined with grants would make our ambition achievable.
Have you got much more? So you've run out.
One moment, but the price has to be fair, and at the moment it isn't. We really believe this pub can survive. Again, we urge you to throw out this application, refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Joe?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. Does your Save the Ship community group have any capital at all? You know, have you got some capital in? Because it sounds like you're just waiting to see if the grant comes up, and that might never happen, dependent on what the government decides. Thank you.
We took advice from the Plunkett Foundation and others as to the best way to buy this pub. And we were recommended, first of all, in fact, we were encouraged to go for the Community Ownership Fund, and as my colleague has just said, we were given a grant to pay for surveys, structural surveys, plans and all sorts of things to enable us to do that. And on that assumption, that's how we went to the village to say, there's no way we can raise best part of £500,000 by selling cups of tea and buns, but we could potentially, how much could we raise by people contributing? And our immediate response was very positive, as I say, well into six figures, probably 150,000, without really doing any particular marketing at all. And on the strength of that, that was our objective. When the fund discontinued, there was still people willing to pay, but only at the right price. You know, if they're not going to contribute to something which is worth 200,000, having to raise 350,000 or 400,000. We've looked at a variety of other options, including loans from the Public Works, the government, central government's work, but currently interest rates are so high that that doesn't seem a sensible route to take. But there are other options, other grants which we look at, but again, they come down to having matching funding. Because the government had promised that they would replace the community ownership fund, we've been working, continuing to work on our existing plans. Well, every month it seems to be deferred. Of course, we're coming up now to a budget and a financial review, so we're optimistic that there may be something coming out of that. If it isn't, then our other plans will be pursued. But the quick answer to your question is no, we don't have money in our pocket, not significant funds, capital at the moment.
So,
Sorry, I could just also say, but it doesn't have to be bought by the community. We'd be happy for anyone to buy it. And we know there are people out there who run pubs who would run it, but not at £350,000 or £400,000. So our ideal, to be absolutely honest, would be that someone else takes this pub, works with the community, and we already know at least 2 organisations who would be prepared to do that, again, at the right price.
Okay, thank you. Stuart?
Chair, can I just explore the options in terms of valuation? What you said, I mean, the pub you said was originally marketed at 400,000, then was reduced to 350,000, and you said you'd had some valuations done, just for example, around about 200,000 ish to make it viable.
The most recent one,
Sorry.
I think our most recent valuation was 280,000 on the assumption, this is important, on the assumption that it was ready to open for trade. Now, in order to do that, the pub is deteriorated, but it needs a new kitchen and things anyway. So we have made some assumptions as to what that would cost. We put a series of alternatives from a basic refurbishment just to open it, to adding extensions at the back and turning it into enlarging the pub generally. But just assuming the very smallest of the options in order to make the pub viable as a business is about £70,000–80,000. So it takes that 280,000 down to about 200,000 would be a reasonable price for the pub. I met a pub operator there yesterday. You may well have seen the post he's put on Facebook today. He thinks it's worth 150,000 as a pub, as in its current condition. It's worth, I'm sure it's worth a great deal more as a house, and clearly that's what the owners wanted to achieve.
Okay, thank you.
Point. I think the question about have we got capital reserves and so on is a valid question. The point I was going to make is that if we were talking about buying a pub at 200,000 rather than 400, we could probably do that very quickly. As Mike said, we were able to get pledges for about 125,000 in 1 week when we researched it. So I think that kind of figure would make it immensely achievable for the community to do without grant funding. So again, the price issue is the crux of the matter, because you can expect a community to put that money in. And I think if we'd asked people to give us the money ahead of time, they would have done, but it's not right that we should be sitting on 125 grand of people's money waiting to negotiate, given the current circumstances of the price.
Okay, thank you. Peter, you're next, please.
Yeah, just a quick relevant
Quick,
to that.
Stuart, please.
Have you had are you aware that any pub operator, based on the asking price say of 350 currently, has made an offer and it's been turned down? Or not?
No, I'm aware of a local pub operator who was very interested indeed and spent quite a lot of time doing surveys, and concluded it could be viable. But the figures they came up with for the valuation of the pub was such that they decided it wasn't even worth talking to the owners, because the gap was so enormous. I have spoken to the agents in the past based on some of the figures we've produced, and frankly they're very difficult to get hold of. They never answer the phone or return calls, but by the way perhaps. But they've made it very clear that any proposals we make, we have to have the money in our pocket, which we don't at that stage, and that their client was most unlikely to consider any offer within, it would have to be exceptionally close to the asking price.
So could I just add also the
Can
purchase?
we just carry on, please, with Peter's question first?
I beg your pardon.
Thanks for coming, gentlemen. Just a quick, have you ever considered incorporating a post office into the pub?
Our plan, if you know South Walsham, you'll know that when we moved there, there were 2 shops, a post office, 2 pubs, a hotel. All those are gone. This is the remaining pub. And part of our plans, which we were ready to submit to the Community Ownership Fund, included provision of a shop, a post office, potentially a portable, an occasional banking facility, a prescription collection facility, sessions for older people to use the pub during the day as a sort of tea and coffee, as warm space. But most importantly, if you live in a village, you move to a village, how do you meet people? You know, if you don't go to the church or play football or something, you do it at, you go to the pub, and after your second visit people talk to you. So the community itself creates activities within a pub, but if it's a community-owned pub, not just people who are trying to get the best possible profit out of it, we can work with them to make sure that there are facilities which people want, and including this extension we want to put, if we can raise sufficient funds, if we had the pub, an extension at the rear which would then become an overflow dining room for the summer season and a community space for the rest of the time.
Thank you, gentlemen. If there's no other questions, would you like to return to your seat, please? Thank you. I'd like to call John Trotter, the agent. Mr. Trotter, you have 5 minutes.
Right. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the applicant in support of the application. The Planning Officer's report outlines the key planning considerations and the reasons for recommending approval of the application. Sorry, I'm reading. The proposal is acceptable as it complies with the planning policies of the National Planning Policy Framework and the adopted Broadland Local Plan. We note that concern has been raised by locals at the loss of the existing use. However, one must be realistic about the need for community use here compared with that of the residential use, given the circumstances, which include the council's housing position and the evidence submitted with the application regarding the property's non-viability and overall demand. So in terms of loss of the existing use, we understand the concerns of many of the local objectors, including those made by the Community Benefit Society. However, we respectfully believe that their comments are exaggerated or misinformed. The applicant would not be in this position had a proceedable offer come forward during the period of extensive marketing. To address some of the specific points raised by objectors, on the matter of viability, the local community have misunderstood the details of the property's past trade and history as evidenced by the submitted viability assessment. The business was already struggling prior to COVID, despite the community group's contention that it was well used. Unfortunately, it couldn't trade successfully as a local for the community due to the small local population, and it doesn't have sufficient appeal to become a drive-to destination venue due to the amount of better alternative provision nearby. So in addition to the Thomas E. Teague concluding that the property is unviable, in an unrelated report dated December 2020 concerning the loss of the King's Arms in the same village, Savills refer to the ship and make the same conclusion. The Savills report notes that the ship was offered to the market to let following a failed assignment of the lease. This suggests that even before the ship closed for the initial COVID lockdown, the previous operators were trying to exit the property, even though it would have been fully functional and open at the time. In addition, Savills noted that the ship failed due to the property being too small to operate as a food-led managed business, and there was not enough local trade to support even one pub within the village. On the marketing, both Florets and Caldecott Group have marketed the property, with it being offered both to let and for sale. The marketing prices were not unreasonable, contrary to the claims. Both Florets and Caldecott reduced prices in order to attract interest. According to Caldecott Group, a number of publicans and restaurateurs viewed the property but did not make any offers at any level. Therefore, it cannot be said that the guide prices were unrealistic, as it was appropriately priced to entice publicans and restaurateurs alike to view the property. I've been informed that the agents, Caldecott Group, have just sold a public house in Buxton, north of Norwich, for continued commercial use at a similar price to the ship, providing further evidence that the guide price was appropriate. The property was marketed as one would expect and has had good market exposure, with details of the property widely distributed, including at the reduced prices. The fact that no offers were made for continued public use speaks to the unattractiveness of the premises in financial and viability terms rather than the price, as the agents would have expected offers otherwise. Although there is interest from local community group in purchasing property, they are not in position to proceed and are unable to so, given the significant financial hurdles involved. It's recognised that the property is an asset of community value. However, this designation doesn't prevent the redevelopment of public houses, but rather gives the local community group a special opportunity to purchase the property when it is put on the market for sale. The community group have been unable to secure finance for a purchase. The applicants have met their obligations in this regard and should not be penalised if the local community group is not in a position to raise the funds to proceed. Reference has also been made to emerging legislation, the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill 2024.
Mr. Trotter, you are out of time. Do you have much more left?
A few paragraphs. Well, I suppose, yes.
You sum up, please.
I mean, there's some legislation going through, but we can't wait forever for legislation that may not get passed in Parliament that would change the situation. So in terms of material planning matters, the proposals are compliant with the local policy in all other respects, and therefore we respectfully ask that your planning officer's view is upheld and it's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Trotter. Anybody wish to ask any questions, Mr. Trotter? No? Thank you. You may return to your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we go to general discussion? Oh, thanks, Joe. Yes, Eleanor.
Thank you, Chair. So it seems to me the relevant policies here are E2 of the DMPD and CSU2 of the DMPD. E2 says that employment sites should be retained unless the new use will not result in detrimental impact, and it has been demonstrated that continued employment use is not viable. So the questions are, is there a detrimental impact which outweighs the positive benefit? And in my view, the answer's no, unfortunately. Converting a building and retaining the same footprint of the building, and this is a building that's been vacant for 5 years and is on brownfield land, is not detrimental. And secondly, has it been fully demonstrated that continued employment use is not viable? Well, yes, I think it has been. So this does not detract, I don't think, from the very sad situation where a village has lost an asset of community value for 5 years, and if this plan is approved, the loss will be permanent. So I fully recognise that, and I thank you for coming to speak today on behalf of the community organisation. But I believe there are clear planning reasons here to approve this application.
Thank you, Anna. I would add to that building in question has been unoccupied since 2020, despite efforts to explore its potential as a community asset. It is unfortunate that no viable funding has been secured, and I'm afraid waiting for the government to bring in further legislation is like having a crystal ball. You don't know when that's going to happen. In light of this, the proposed development offers a realistic and beneficial alternative that will bring the site back into active use. It does also align with several key planning policies, which I've noted here. And I think, as there's no credible funding coming forward with the community group, we need to approve this application. It will prevent further deterioration of the site, enhance the local street scene, deliver new housing, and support regeneration of the area. And for these reasons, I urge the committee to approve this application. Anybody else wish to speak? Peter?
Yeah, just an observation, and I concur with what you say, how sad this is, having used the ship many a time in the past again, and it was a hub of the community, but unfortunately the hub has faded away, really. The heart has gone out of the village. There used to be a post office there. There was a little shop I quite often frequented. The King's Head, there was a garage there as well. But unfortunately, the times have changed, and as you say, we cannot really wait to see whether the government was to bring in a new bill which may support the campaigners in their quest to try and take it on. It's very sad. It's a question of bad timing, really. If the plug hadn't been pulled on the fund last year, then maybe they'd have had an opportunity. But I do sadly concur with what you're saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I think also I agree with what yourself and Peter said. I think it's effectively, as has been alluded to, been empty since 2025, basically COVID related, which is unfortunate. I think the big problem is if the community group had a substantial amount of money themselves, in other words, to put inverted commas quite a substantial deposit down, and were in a position to negotiate. But I think as much as the disparities on the pricing between what the valuation is and what in essence it's viable at, I think that's the problem. I think in fairness, again, to look at it totally logically, whoever the freehold owner is, they can't be expected to sell the property way below market value, and that's the crux of it. If the offer was something approaching not just the market value, the viability value. I mean, we've heard different figures quoted at what level the business would be viable at. And if there's somebody actually be prepared to, just for example, to say, well, yes, actually, we're prepared to offer, I'll just off the top of my head, £225,000, £230,000, and here's the cheque, we're ready to do business, we're ready to exchange and complete. I think it'd be a different story. But I think the problem is because there isn't substantial funds available, and the likelihood of substantial funds available to bridge that gap between valuation and viability of operating, I don't see it is. And I agree with exactly what you've said and what Peter said. Yeah, it's a huge loss, and Eleanor and everybody else has said it is a huge loss to the community, and I think, you know, there's probably a genuine will in the community to make this happen, to make this work. But the absolute reality is the difference between the funding and the availability of the funding and actually coming up with the money makes this, unfortunately, not going to happen.
Thank you, Stuart. Jo?
Thank you, Chair. I found the objector's argument very compelling. It is such a shame that this is being converted into a house, and it would have been a great use for the community, obviously. My concern is if our committee approved this application, there is a large area of car park behind the pub, and I just wonder whether we could put a condition on that there would be no further backland development on that. Because obviously, if it is converted into a house, it'll be setting some sort of precedent, And then I just wonder whether the owners of the site will then sort of develop all the car park as well. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Ben about that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Ellie probably knows better than me. But no is the simple answer. We'll consider, if an application comes in on its merits, we'll consider it. But also it's worth noting that that property is within the settlement limit, so the principle of development is acceptable, subject to all of the other relevant elements of the documents, policy documents that we've got. So it may well be that a house goes there, can't guarantee it, but we will consider an application when it comes in, if it comes in.
Anybody else wish to speak? No? Can we go to, I'm sorry if you've had your time. Right, committee, can we go to the officer's recommendation to approve this? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Right, committee, we're moving on to the next application, 40 POSIC at the Horizon Centre. Nigel, where is he? Just wait for Nigel to come back and then we'll start. Okay, are we ready to start? Right, we have Matthew, who's going to present the presentation.
Okay, so we have a planning application for advertisement consent. So this is for the annex building at the Horizon Centre, and the description of development is for the installation of 2 internally illuminated fascia signs and 1 non-illuminated fascia signs. So, as you're all probably aware, we are currently in the Horizon Centre, and this is the annex building here. So, earlier this year, Planning Committee granted approval for the change of use to a veterinary practice, and there was also a further application earlier this year to amend the position of the lift, which again was recommended for approval by Planning Committee. And the reasons for it being brought to Planning Committee is due to the council own the annex building itself. So, as you're all probably aware, this is the wider site context of the Broadland Business Park. So this is the building here itself. Not to go into too much detail, but I just want to make you aware that the field here, the adjacent field, so earlier this year, Broadland Planning Committee in May recommended approval for a new Costco building, which is currently still pending consideration. The recommendation was one for approval subject to resolving drainage and flooding matters and also the progression of a legal agreement. So these are the proposed elevations. So you're probably quite aware of what the building looks like. So just to run you through what the signage will be. So you've got 2 signs that are proposed here. So you've got the non-illuminated sign, which is the reception one situated here. And this is the elevation for the car park. So you'd be coming from the car park up the stairs to the Horizon Centre like that. And that's the front entrance for the veterinary practice. And then this one here, which is a standard veterinary logo, this is an illuminated sign. So there are 2 proposed for the east elevation. So as officers, we've got no objections to these 2 signs here. So the other sign that is proposed, and this is where officers have raised concerns, is this one here. So this is the front entrance here. So as you can see, this is the sign, but it is on the south elevation and it's fronting onto the field where the Costco building has been recommended for approval, and it's also going to be where the A47 goes into Norwich itself. So the adverts regulations are very clear that when it comes to assessing proposed advertisement, it's advised that any advertisement needs to respect the architectural and environmental qualities of the area, avoid visual clutter, or be detracting from local distinctiveness. So the general purpose is making sure that any proposed signage has good general character and appearance for the locality, and also encouraging positive visual amenity of their surroundings while safeguarding the public interest. So the concerns that officers have with this sign is regarding the location, the scale, and the illumination for the sign. So officers are concerned that because it's going to be a rooftop sign, it's going to be very visually prominent, and as officers we do consider this is going to be detrimental to the locality and the character and appearance of the area. There are concerns with the scale of the lettering. We feel that this is too significant and it's not reflective of other signage found within the Broadland Business Park. And finally, there are concerns given that the Broadland Business Park does sit within a protected night sky area, that there are concerns regarding the illumination for the sign as well. So just some better images of the proposed signage. I just want to make you aware that we have consulted Norfolk County Council Highways and also Broadland Council's environmental quality team. So they were consulted to assess the proposed illumination, but also the visual impact, respectively, on highways specifically, or more general regarding amenity and by environmental quality. And just to inform you that neither of them raised any objections, and they've just recommended conditions which include the restriction of illumination levels. So these are just some pictures. So as you can see, there has already been some, I guess, back paneling already erected, and this is where the proposed roof sign that we've got concerns would be erected. And then this is just from another angle, again, just showing where the roof sign would be. And you can sort of see some buildings here, and you can also see the Horizon Centre here. And then finally, this is sort of looking out onto where the A47 starts to go into Norwich itself. And this is where the field where the Costco building has been recommended for approval. And this is just the elevation where the two signs that we've got no objection for, so the non-illuminated reception sign and also the standard veterinary logo would go. So in summary, so as officers, we are recommending refusal for the application. The reasons for refusal: we don't consider this sign here, the roof sign, to be in accordance with the adverts regulations, and furthermore, we also don't consider it to be in accordance with local planning policy GC4 of the DPD and policy 2 of the Greater Norwich Local Plan, and also policy PW12 of the Poswick and Witton Neighbourhood Plan. So therefore, the application is recommended for refusal.
Thank you, Matthew. Any questions from the committee? Eleanor?
Yes, thank you for that presentation. Just a query on the level of illumination. So in the report, in paragraph 5.11, it says it's 568 candelas per metre squared, but we had a recent update from the applicant who seems to be indicating that it's up to or less than 400 candelas per metre squared. So what is the level of brightness, please?
Yeah, so when we received revised plans, we did request for the agent for the planning application to also submit, because there's a section, so section 11 of the application form asks for what will be the illumination levels. We've got 568 on the application form itself. If there has been a difference, it may be that the applicant can advise it during his speech itself.
The Costco's been built on the land there. How much of that building and that signage is visible? Because Costco's got a large warehouse type building, I assume, and very large units. So it's difficult to see that from this. I don't know. Because I'm just thinking in terms of, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
So I don't have plans to show you, which is slightly unhelpful. So it's probably my fault. But if you go to the aerial view, Matthew, that would be really helpful. So if you can see where the canopies are to the right-hand side on the screen, which are the parking areas that we've got in the Horizon Centre car park, the main warehouse building would in effect be directly in front of those buildings, with a slight cut-out area in an L sort of shape in front of the vets building. So it would still be visible to the, my bearings now, to the west of you as you were coming from where it says the A1048 at that roundabout. You'd certainly see it coming that way. Haven't got the levels or the height in front of me of the Costco building, but actually for a warehouse it's not hugely high. It's you know, kept down, but you would see some element of it across it. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick one. A bit counterintuitive. Would it be illuminated 24/7, do you think?
Yeah, so our understanding is that it is going to be illuminated 24/7, but I know based upon the drawings that have been submitted on the proposed elevations, there is the proposal to drop the illumination level at night time. And again, because as the Vice Chair, Councillor Eleanor has raised, the applicant would confirm what the nighttime illumination would be.
If there's no other questions, I will call the speaker. Evangelios? I'm not going to pronounce your surname. Would you like to come forward, please? You have 5 minutes from when you start speaking. If you press the right-hand button, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, members and officers. My name is Evangelos Kanelos, co-founder and director of VifoVets, an independent veterinary hospital at Annex in Broadland Business Park. So our Illuminate signage is not decorative, it is functional and safety-led. We are opening Norwich's only independent 24-hour hospital designed to give local families immediate access to emergency care for their pets. So many clients will arrive distressed, sometimes late at night, with a sick or injured animal. Therefore, clear, visible wayfinding is vital in those moments because it reduces delay, anxiety, and risk on the road. The Annex sits in Broadland Business Park, one of the most developed and well-lit commercial areas in the region. There are already dozens of lampposts, car park lights, 24/7 offices, and Illuminate corporate signs operating overnight across the park. We've got GridServe, Costa, McDonald's, Lidl, Jaguar, Mars, and many others. Directly opposite our site, the council has granted permission for the new Costco development, which is, from my understanding, a building around 25 meters tall, covering over 5 hectares, with more than 600 car park lights and multiple Illuminate logos and glazed entrances. So in contrast, our proposal is for 1 to 2 meter wide logo, face illumination only, mounted roughly about 22 meters high, lower than the Costco roof line, producing less than 2 lugs at 30 meters distance, which is dimmer than a standard street light. In short, ours, I believe, is negligible and proportionate addition to an already bright, or what will be a bright urban landscape. So we take wildlife seriously, It's literally what we do. So our lighting specification, from what my specialists have suggested, include warm light LEDs under 3000K, automatic dimmers reducing brightness after 11, and a full curfew between midnight and 7 o'clock. We also got photo cell and astronomical timers to adjust seasonally. Importantly, our building external and car park lights already approved and installed on site are council controlled dusk to dawn units, creating a bright and safe environment at night for our clients. So our proposed rooftop logo will operate within that existing light envelope, remaining significantly dimmer than those fixtures and adding no measurable light spill or impact. I believe this ensures full compliance with ILP guidance, and we are happy to accept any planning condition verifying lux levels, dimming schedules, or annual compliance checks. Broadland Business Park has consistently supported illuminate signages for larger companies. Our independent practice is asking for an equal reasonable treatment, nothing more. We're investing a substantial amount in repurposing a long vacant council-owned building, creating a skilled job and offering a 24/7 service in Norwich, which currently lacks. And visibility is essential for that service to function safely and sustainably. Members, this is not a commercial billboard. It is a, I think, low-impact, clinically justified and environmentally managed sign whose purpose is basically public safety and accessibility. It will help water owners find us quickly at night while their pets and animals might be at need. And we just respectfully ask that you view the application and its product content and grant consent with any reasonable line condition you see fit, because we believe doing so will support a community-focused independent business, uphold consistency with other approvals, and provide a visible reassuring beacon for pets and owners in need. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Can I just clarify one thing with you? You said curfew between 11 and 7? Does that mean the lights are going to be switched off between that time?
We were hoping to switch on from midnight till 7 in the morning. Yeah.
Until 7. Okay. And then dimmed from 11. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Peter?
The only thing I'd say about that, I'd welcome switching off. If you're a 24/7 operation, that's really when you're going to need the light on. If somebody was to come in the middle of the night, aren't they, when it's dark? That's probably when you're going to require it.
So yeah, so basically, our concern was it's quite hard for what that's been the feedback for clients to find directing and driving through the council. And I'm worried that we're going to be trapped between two quite substantial buildings. You've got Costco one and the council the other end, so it'll be quite difficult for anyone to find out of hours. But bear in mind, because I've been doing out of hours work for the last 2 years, most of the emergencies are between 7 o'clock and midnight. So we are hoping that thereafter we meet the clients at the council gate and we'll be able to drive them through the practice.
As a secondary point, I'm just going to say that really, I mean, Lidl and McDonald's don't turn their signs off through the night, do they?
I did look yesterday when we left here, and there is a big McDonald's sign as we go out of the road. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? Anybody else got any questions? No? Did the officers know about the curfew?
I didn't know off the top of my head. No, we thought it was going to be 24/7.
Yeah. Deal with the curfew if you want to. Yeah.
I think, Chair, I think it's fair to say, I think you've mentioned it and others have mentioned it. I mean, this would not be by no means the only illuminated sign in the area. There's a lot of illuminated signs in the area, and I know think about it. You go a bit further around, there's whatever Jaguar Land Rover Group 1, what are they called now? You've got McDonald's, you've got Lidl's, you've got, there's another one further around which I can't remember, but there's several in the area, and I don't think this would be setting the precedent. I think it would be supporting, frankly, a good quality service in the area, and business which is going to be employing skilled workers, skilled people working in the business. And I think it's been offered up the curfew, which is fair enough, but I think, as my colleague Peter said, in a way, you're probably going to, if it's going to be used for, inverted commas, for a waymarker or direction, realistically, that's the most time at night when people are going to need it. And for the very reasons, if they bring animals in distress there to avail themselves of a 24-hour service, any help they can get from that, it would be highly beneficial. So basically, all in all, I don't see much problem with it. No.
I think I'm the same, and we're going to have more buildings in the area. We're going to have M&S, we're going to have other buildings which will have illuminated signs. So, Eleanor.
Yes, thank you. So can I just clarify, if there is a curfew, will the sign be, the illumination be reduced, or will it be completely off, or what would we be switched off? Is that?
I think it's not, if we're moving to the realms of members wanting to approve it, then it's up to you.
Could I just say some things? I mean, I have had multiple concerns about the general and increasing illumination levels on Broadland Gate Business Park for some time. I think on every application that's come in for that park, I've raised lighting issues as a concern. So I don't really want to see light pollution becoming an increasing problem on Broadland Business Park too. And I've noticed when I cycle back late at night from Brundle or Poswick on the low road, the business parks are starting to look a bit like a kind of small Las Vegas when they're lit up against the surrounding dark sky. And the Broadland Gate Business Park has still got empty plots on it. So I did agree with Poswick Parish Council, have made comments with concerns about illumination of the night sky. I have concerns about the increasing light pollution in the area. So if there was illuminated signage added on top of that late at night, I think it does cause detrimental harm to the amenity of the area. And I would also like to see, anyway, careful consideration of lighting levels for any other applications that come forward, because there are a couple, at least on Broadland Gate Business Park, that I think the lighting is certainly excessive and is on 24 hours, or you know, it's on all night. So I will reserve judgment until I hear what the committee decide to say, but lighting is an issue for me.
I think we had Adrian first.
Sorry.
Can I just...
And Joe next, okay? So Adrian first.
Yeah. I think the reason we were asked to refuse this for around the illumination of the light doesn't, to me, have, as Eleanor mentioned, about all the other businesses and units that have been set up who probably aren't following the recommendation around candelas and the brightness. And the dimming, and I don't think they've been even as considerate as that. So I find it very difficult to support a refusal for this when there's other places already probably doing illuminating their signs in an even more inconsiderate way. There's places in my own ward themselves of illuminated signs on the side of commercial buildings that residents complain about, and it gets approved. So I think I struggle to see sufficient examples elsewhere in our district where this kind of stuff gets refused. So I find it very difficult to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say we're here to determine this application, not other applications within the Broadland Business Park. But yes, it is useful to have some comparison. I think the applicant who's spoken to us is quite right, actually. This is a vets, a 24-hour vets. It is a service to our community, and they need to know where to find it. And if he is offering some sort of curfew where it will be switched off, I think that's actually very reasonable, Chair. Thank you.
Just a very quick observation, really. We'll put you on the spot, but do we know what? I bet Costco have got some signs up, and that's going to be in that area just adjacent to it, isn't it?
We don't know yet, do we?
Yeah, we haven't got the details for that yet. The application has got signs on the side of the building, but there's no illumination at the moment proposed for them. We haven't got the application for it. Chair, could I just say one thing? If that's right? Sorry, whilst I'm talking. Look, this one is an interesting one. Obviously, the simple thing and easy thing would have been to just go ahead with it. It's a council-owned building, and we want it to succeed. Of course, we do. And I'll take the reason why it's come to committee. I think the sign is inappropriate for the reasons set out in the committee report. And the only thing I'll say, I'm not going to push that because it's not my place to do so. You've all had a conversation about it. It's up for you to decide. Broadland Gate is very different to Broadland Business Park. I know it's literally across the road, but it's very different. It's a very different beast with different signage, with more illumination. If you walk around this part of the business park, that is not the norm. And if we move towards that, well, if we move towards that, that's what we do. I'm not saying it sets a precedent, because it's for us to consider as officers. Other applications, and as Councillor Copperstone very rightly says, we're here to consider this application that's in front of us. But I just wanted to put that context to say Broadland Gate is quite different to where we are in Broadland Business Park at the moment.
Yeah, further from the comments earlier, I probably should have added, but in terms of not agreeing with the officer's recommendation, the counter proposal I'd have is to prove it based on the fact of the maybe insert a condition around the curfew, so it's not in use between 12 and 7. So those, because I think in certain those kind of conditions, that I heard what Ben just said about the area and don't want the amount of, and what Eleanor said, the amount of lighting to sort of run away and turn into the Las Vegas of Broadland type thing. I think there's certain those kind of conditions, and looking at to apply that consistency on future applications as well, where we say, look, you can have illuminated signs, but it's got to be, within that sort of, a lot of these businesses, I bemoan the fact that I see a lot of businesses with lights on and illuminated signs, and the doors are closed.
Yeah. But
this business wants to turn their lights off between 12 and 7 when they're actually still operating. Yeah. So I think maybe insert a condition for that as an alternative proposal.
Yeah, I think the addition of a condition from 12 to 7, as the planning officers didn't realise that was going to be happening, is quite a material consideration for this application. Can we add it as a condition? Let's go to the officer's recommendation for refusal first. So if we could vote on that, please. All those in favour of voting for a refusal, please show your hands. All those against? Okay, that's unanimous. So can we go for a condition on the application that the lights are turned off between 12 and 7?
Can we just confirm?
Is that okay with yourself?
Yeah, that is completely evidence-based, based on the fact that most of the emergency and out of hours are between 7 and midnight. So we're happy, to be honest, we're happy to work with you guys and with the council
Good, that's
to any curfew and any illumination signs. We didn't create the signage, it was a specialist that designed it. We didn't choose the location, the size, it was all based on visibility from the streets, hence the position based on the future Costco building. So it was all about just to guide clients to the practice.
Okay, so can I propose that we, Ben, recommend approval of this with the condition of the curfew from 12 till 7 o'clock?
Yes, certainly, but just to add as well, just to add, we'd want to add the standard time limit condition on, we'd want to add that condition on, and we'd also want to add a condition about the luminance levels of the sign when it's on as well. So,
are you agreeable with that?
Yeah, well, happy. As long as it's just, I can provide the information to the architects and the signage specialists, we'll just do whatever, the planners have suggested.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's just with standard advert conditions on. Okay.
So can we go for a vote to approve this with conditions, please? All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.